Students, today I have decided to change the genre to discuss. We can say that the genre that you are undertaking today is going to be very much interesting. That is novel. Here we have David Copperfield by Charles Dickens to talk about. We know that this is a very mind-catching novel for many reasons, and Charles Dickens in his life could not see the success of, rather the grand success in this novel, but no doubt after his death David Copperfield has been a grand success. And when we are going to undertake summary of this novel, we find that there are so many important points that we will discuss, which are essential for our personality development. Although at surface level it seems to be a quite simple novel, and we cannot say that it is so complicated in its theme and in its treatment of subject, but we can show that it is the starting of a psychological novel, we can say. Here we should not only talk about the main incidents which have taken place in the life of David Copperfield, the protagonist, but we should also take into account their significance in the building of personality of David Copperfield. I am Dr. Naveen Kumar Jha, Associate Professor in English, and I this time have changed my genre of discussion because novel has been a very descriptive field of composition, which has a full story to talk about, and we can say that it is most popularly recognized after 18th century among the audience. Now, coming to the theme of this novel, we can say that the main character is David Copperfield. He is born in Bloodstone, Suffolk, England. He is born after 6 months of his father's death. So we can say that it is the first unfortunate incident that David Copperfield has faced in his life, that he could not see his his father, and so his father was dead when he was in the womb of mother. So we can say that it is not nice for a child who is born fatherless, because father has particularly a very great role to shape the personality of a child, and he was just not under the shadow of the father. And it is really a first point of a struggle that starts before actually David Copperfield was born. So what happens? Now, he has spent his early years in happiness because mother was there. So, with his loving and childish mother, there was no great trouble. But his mother got married And as it is the rule of the world, he disliked his stepfather, Mudstone, and his sister, Jan. The reason is obvious that they were firm in their behavior towards David Copperfield. That he was not a loving and childish father as was his mother. Now, it is herefrom that trouble starts in the life of David Copperfield. So, his stepfather and his sister Jane started tyrannizing his poor mother and David. They made their lives miserable. And we know that there is an incident when Mudstone thrashed David Copperfield. What? On his falling behind in his study. And we should notice one point, that when a father is alive and his son falls behind in his study, he supports his son. He encourages his son. Instead of thrashing his son, the father actually encourages to let his son restore the stamina for just improving in study as well. But it is not the case here. And so father did one just strict action. So he took a strict action that he sent away to Salem House, that is a boarding house, under a ruthless headmaster named Crackle. So we find that sending to a boarding house is not a problem. Problem is of intention. So what was his father thinking, or stepfather thinking, behind sending him to a boarding school? That he liked David Copperfield to be tackled strictly, and it is why he sent to the boarding school, which was run by a ruthless headmaster, that he should thrash him, he should just rebuke him, or he should just beat him. This was malintention that made his father take this decision. Now, it happens that at the school there are so many friends who are helping, there are so many friends who are opposing, but here there are two friends that you need mentioning of David Copperfield, namely James Steerforth and Tommy Treadless. And so we can say that David Copperfield has a great admiration for Steerforth because he was a noble person. So on the one hand we find that he was under the strict and ruthless headmaster. On the other hand we find that he had just two good friends here at this boarding school. Now, just we can say that difficulty increases. That so far he was thinking that okay, his mother is in his support, or he has a loving mother, but his mother and newly born baby died. This is once again a harsh blow to David Copperfield. Now, Charles Dickens thinks that the maturity of the person develops with age and the trouble that we face in the life. There are two possibilities. When there are troubles after troubles, a child is getting stronger, fighting against troubles, and developing himself into good personality. On the other hand, we can also find that in such a situation, or in such an unfortunate situation, child is getting weaker and weaker and get depressed. So let us see what happens just to David Copperfield, that Mother Stone sent David to work for a wine merchant in London. Here there is a factory, and Mother Stone is a joint owner of the business. So you find that time wine merchant or wine factory was very much prevalent into England, and her working condition was not nice. When you read the history of the factory and we can study the working condition of the factory, especially for child, we find that it is horrible. It is not worth working. And here, because David Copperfield had lost his mother, so his father had made his life hellish, sending him to the wine factory for work. And this time we find that no one is to care for David Copperfield in London. So he's alone here. He's really without any love, without any support. And you find that it was a very troublesome day in the life of David Copperfield. So there is only one remaining relative who is eccentric and kind-hearted, great Aunt Betsy Trotwood. She has only pity on him, and all are their foes and enemies except the Betsy Trotwood. So can you believe that a person can survive, especially a child can survive, without a person to love him, to support him? Even just we grown-up people need someone to admire, need someone to support in distress, in trouble. But when it is a matter of a child who is motherless, who has no one to look for except the aunt, how difficult, how miserable the life of that person is, that child is. So, thanks to that just a kind-hearted aunt, that he was sent to a better school which was run by Dr. Strong. Now we can say Dr. Strong is known for his methods, which inculcate honor and self-reliance in his pupils. Here earlier we found that the teacher was very much ruthless. This time you find that teacher was very, very, very nice, that he has all care for the inculcation of honor and self-reliance in his pupils. Now here from just his fortune changing, because this is an opportunity for David Copperfield to develop himself into a successful writer. So David stayed with Lord Mr. Wickfield and his daughter Athens, who is his friend, and later we know she becomes his wife as well. So there is another character we should discuss, that is he. Now who gained a complete ascendancy over the aging and alcoholic Wickfield. Now we can say that here it is just a very much group of people we can find, that there are two groups of people, and in the novel also you find that one group of people just is very much a nice person who is supporting, who is just making all possible way for development of just the persons, their mates. On the other hand, we find like Hip here, who is just going to exploit the weaker position of a person. Now here we find that Wickfield is an alcoholic personality, and so this is a very good opportunity for Hip to gain a complete ascendancy, because he's aging as well and he's alcoholic as well. So we find that when we get weaker financially, or when our situation is not in our favor, we find that most of the peoples are coming to trash us, coming to exploit our situation. So Macweaver, employed by Hip as a secretary, is just going to reveal his fraudulent behavior. So we have just told that this world is not only of the good men, but this world is of the bad men also. So we find in our life both types of tastes are coming. That sweet taste and bitter taste. And life is what is known for this. We cannot expect all time to have the good taste. Yes, it is all due to good people and bad people surrounding us. So after schooling, David apprentices to be a proctor, and so his earned fortune had been diminished by his fraudulent activity. But due to good schooling, due to good teaching facility or encouraging teacher, he has been successful to be a proctor. And now, as I have earlier mentioned, that a child just who is passing through a very unfortunate condition is more obstinate to improve his character. So just that child labors and labors to make his fortune himself. And so is here David Copperfield, who labored to make a living for his former teacher, Dr. Strong, as a secretary. And what happens? He is laboring and learning shorthand by his old school friend Fred's help. And we can still find that there is another just good personality in his life, Dickens, who is supporting him morally. So now we can say that all the troubles that he was facing has made him improve, and there are so many good persons also around him who are just going to help and support him to develop his profession, to develop his career. So it is just the characteristic development we find in the child, like David Copperfield. Now we can say it is the good, it can be bad also, that for his own great diligence and hard work, David ultimately found fame and fortune as an author who is writing fiction. And we find that it is here through challenges, through troubles, a man develops, gets maturity and personality and strength. And so here is Steerforth, that is David's romantic, self-serving school friend, seduced and dishonored Emily, getting her married to his manservant Litimer. This is another bad character that we are facing. And her uncle, Mr. Peggotty, managed to find her with Martha, and Ham engaged to marry Emily. But unfortunately, what happens? He is killed. He is not killed, he died in a fierce storm, attempting to save a ship. So Steerforth also died. So there are good persons who are dying earlier, all because of good nature. That here we can talk about Ham, who wants to marry Emily, but he dies for the good reason, for the good purpose. And it happens, and we find that Mr. Peggotty took Emily to Australia for security and happiness. Here we find that Australia had been just supposed to be a place of complacence, to be a place of happiness. That from England, the persons and characters are sent to Australia to relieve. And so this is what a change is essential, a spatial change is essential to get mental relief. Now here we can say that David fell in love and married Dora Spenlow. But what happens? That this married life does not run long. Dora died after a miscarriage. And now we find that chapter of love is closed. Then once again we find the agents comes here to encourage David to return to a normal life. We find just this is also a very much torturing situation in the life of David Copperfield, that his just married life is ruined totally after the miscarriage and death of Dora. So here this time also we need a person is supporting him. And here in the life of David Copperfield, agents comes, and she is making her best effort to make David return to normal life. and to improve his profession of writing. Now, after this kind of just misfortune that he lost Dora, he comes to Switzerland to dispel his grief for so many losses. We can say there are losses and losses in the life of David Copperfield, and they are all emotional losses. That is the most cruel losses we find, and David loved agents. Now, when he returned to England, he knew that agents too loved him. Now, we find someone. It is all due to what he can call the just a different kind of physics in life, that we improve ourselves. So here it is the moment of happiness for David, that they married and found true happiness, and they have actually 5 children, including a daughter who has been named after his great aunt Betsy Trotwood. So what we find? We find that it is a very, very good just a story. It is not only a story, it shows that in our life there is no permanent situation. Now, there are so many examples of a child who has been struggling in life, and ultimately after a struggle he is successful in establishing himself, and now he emerges to be a good personality as well. But we can say it is just all the fortunate ending of David Copperfield, that he has just a happy married life, a good family life, and good professional life. But it doesn't happen to all. In such an unfortunate condition, we may find that there are so many children who just are driven away to doom and disaster. But okay, we should be happy here that this is the happy ending of this novel. Thank you very much.